Okay. So we are here live with my sister-in-law, Miss Terry, and I wanted to interview Terry. I've chose Terry as my bad mama jamma for the week. The magic is real because Terry suffered a major loss last year about this time, unfortunately, and she has dealt with it so like courageously, and I've seen her like go through the process of dealing with this loss, and I just wanted to talk to her about the loss of her beloved husband. And Terry, I wanted to say that whenever I saw you and Terry together, like at events and stuff like that, like you would be walking in with your like 5-inch heels on and dressed to a T, and your your glamorous like good looking purses and clothes, because she likes to dress, as you can tell by her like, what is that? Is that that's not a hijab, that's a
no, it's an African head wrap.
African head wrap,
right.
The shirts and everything.
Yes.
And so, and Terry would like, when your husband, when you walked in your heels, he would like, it didn't seem like he'd be like, oh my God, like why are you wearing those heels today? Or he just kind of let you have it, like
right.
That's it, that's my wife and she's looking good and whatever. But I just like the way that he like gave you the floor to like do
to be me,
to be you, exactly, to be
right.
you. And then too, I could tell that you all like were the icing to each other's cake, so to speak. Like you were very comfortable with him, he was very comfortable with you, and it was just like the perfect fit. Right. And even though you had been married for how long?
When he passed, it was eight and a half years.
8 years, okay. Mm-hmm. But it seemed like you guys were always newlyweds to me. It didn't seem like you guys were ever like a bored old married couple. It seems like you guys were always newlyweds to me. So
exactly.
And Terry actually has written, is in the process of writing a book about her experience of her major loss with her husband, and so I just wanted to let her tell her story and maybe read an excerpt from her book and share it with you all.
Sure.
So here we go. So Terry, tell us, how did you, I know he had coronavirus, and you said that at first he had like a dry cough, and then you said you were baking at one time like an apple pie or something, and you said you were baking something and he couldn't smell it.
Oh, cinnamon rolls.
Cinnamon rolls, okay.
Yes.
It was really strong, so.
Yes, and that was before they listed loss of sense and taste as one of the symptoms of the virus. So I didn't know when I told him I'd baked cinnamon rolls, and he asked me, why can't I smell it? I said, I don't know, but I baked them. You know, they just wafted throughout the house, so the house smelled good. And it was puzzling that he couldn't smell them because he was a foodie. He loved food. Yeah. And typically, anytime I was cooking in the kitchen and he was in another room, maybe 10 minutes into the cooking where you could start to smell the aroma, the spices and all, he'd come into the kitchen and say, what you doing? What you fixing?
Oh, yeah.
And because he didn't come to the kitchen when I was baking them, and he was in the office, back in the office in the house, and on a training video, or virtual training for a new job he was starting, I said, well, maybe he's just working and can't, step away from the desk. So I walked back to tell him I baked some cinnamon rolls. Did you want some? And he was like, you did. How come I can't smell them? And I was like, I don't know. You want one? He said, sure. So I put one on a plate, and took it back to him in the office. And even then, as much as I know he likes food, he took a bite, and he never commented. He never said, oh, these are good, which is what he would normally do under circumstances. And then he never even finished the whole cinnamon roll.
So the taste was probably gone too.
Yes, he had lost the sense of taste and smell.
Mm-hmm. And then how many days after that did he go to the hospital too?
Oh, I want to say maybe 2 or 3 days later.
Wow.
I ended up.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he trained that whole week, Monday through Friday. He was sick the entire week that he was doing the training, and I took him to the hospital that following Monday. So the cinnamon rolls I would probably baked on Thursday. Probably on Thursday.
And then you took him to the hospital, and he was having like he couldn't breathe. Like extreme COVID symptoms and stuff like that. Yes. So
as a matter of fact, by the time I got him to the emergency room at KU, and I took him on a Monday. I took him on a Tuesday. I took him Monday because during that time you had to have a doctor's authorization in order to be tested. And I talked to his doctors on Monday. I called his doctor's office and talked to the nurses on Monday, and they took me through a litany of questions, about the symptoms inside, that he was experiencing. And when I got done, they told me that he was eligible, but they would call back because they had to get the doctor's authorization.
Yeah.
And they probably called back about 30 minutes later and says that he's eligible, and we've got can you get him to our campus on, they gave the location, which was for us was probably about a 40-minute drive.
Wow.
And I was like, yeah, we're on our way. So we got there probably 10 minutes before the time they said. So we literally had to sit and wait on the time they told us to be there for them to come out to the car, go around to his side of the car because I was driving, and swab his nostrils. And then she put it in a tube. She was dressed in full hazmat gear.
Oh, yeah.
And instructed us, just to go back home. And I was kind of astounded because he was already struggling to breathe.
Yeah.
Couldn't breathe. And I said, seriously, he's sick.
Yeah,
you can see he's
breathe,
sick. And
yeah.
she said, that's the best we can do right now. I mean, there's nothing else we can do other than to ask you to go home. She said we should know something in 24 to 48 hours. If we know anything before then, we'll contact you immediately. So we just drove back home, and I just watched his health just rapidly decline from there. And by 4 o'clock that morning, well, actually before 4 o'clock that morning, I told him we need to go to the hospital. And he said, just can we wait on the results? Wait till we get the results back. And I was like, seriously, Terry, but he was a man's man, and I wasn't trying to.
A lot of men don't like to really go to the
so
even they're sick.
I'm thinking to myself, okay, we'll wait. But then by 4 o'clock in the morning, I decided waiting was not an option, and I told him we have to go. I, was trying everything I could think of to try to minimize his discomfort or fix the situation, but nothing worked. I put him in a hot, steamy shower.
Wow.
I got the humidifier out and set it by the bed, and turned it on high. It was so high that before he could lay down the bed, the pillow that he was going to lay on was wet. Because I had it so high.
Wow.
I'd done the Vicks Vapor Rub, everything.
Sounds like you did everything natural that anybody else would have thought of.
Right. And prior to that, I was preparing him a lot of herbal teas. I love herbal teas, so I have, and I'll show you that the drawers. But every organic herbal tea that you can imagine you would ever need, I have in my drawers. And I'm fixing him herbal teas, which was another time when I didn't realize, but he couldn't taste. So I'm making them, and I'm adding spices to them, like the turmeric and all of that, and the lemon juice and honey and all those things. And
the honey and the lemon.
He's starting to drink, and he's sipping, and he's like, and after a couple of sips, he pushed a cup away. He said, I can't drink that anymore. And I was like, is it too hot? It doesn't taste right. And I tasted it. Well, it tasted okay, but he just never picked it back up to drink it again. And that was on a couple of occasions throughout the time. But again, he couldn't taste
taste anything. So it's not appetizing to if you can't taste it.
Exactly.
Food or drink.
Yes.
So, and then he was in the hospital for how long?
He was in the hospital for 3 weeks in ICU.
3 weeks.
Yes.
I remember him being in there for quite a while, and I kept asking, how is he? How is he?
Yes.
And then, I guess it was like just the same or something like that. And I was thinking, well, I was praying that he would get better, and
Yes.
And then the last day, I guess that you could go to the hospital, but you couldn't leave the hospital if you went or something like that.
No, their rule was the day that they admitted him, because en route to the hospital, they called and said that his test results came back positive for COVID-19. And I told them we were already en route to the hospital. When we got there, they immediately intubated him, put him on a ventilator, and they sedated him because he was in so much pain that his blood pressure was sky high.
Wow.
So I never saw him conscious again. Matter of fact, he was never conscious again. Over the weeks, as they tried to back him off of sedation, his blood pressure would go back up. So they kept him sedated the entire time. And their rule was, because it was new, they were trying to figure it all out. They didn't, they set protocols in place. So I was not allowed to come into the hospital while he was there. I was not allowed to come up to visit him. they told me that the only way that I could see him, come up to the hospital to see him, is if they thought he was going to die.
Wow.
And I could only come that one time. And they called me on the Friday before he actually, transitioned on. And they called me that morning and said that they didn't think he was going to make it through the day. So they suggested that if I'm able to come. So I did. I got there in like 30 minutes. It was a 40-minute ride, but I got there quickly.
Yeah, you were driving to
and
get there to him.
Once I got there, all his numbers stabled out. All it became just everything.
Like he knew you were there.
Yes.
Like they say, people in a coma, they know
Yes.
that you're there when you're talking to them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they stayed stable. And I got there about 7 in the morning, and I talked to him. I touched him. I rubbed and stroked his head, and because there wasn't much skin left available to see, because they had him on the ventilator. They had stuff taped to him. He was hooked up to every machine under creation that I could see. When they admitted him, he was already in respiratory failure, and then they were trying to minimize or eliminate the other possible side effects, and one of the other concerns was just blood clots. They were a symptom of the virus, and so they put him on blood thinners. His kidneys, had started to fail, so he was in kidney failure after about a week and a half. He remained on the ventilator the entire time, which is never a good thing. I think after a couple of days, you really need to come off of a ventilator. But he was on it the entire time. When I got there, all his numbers stabilized, and the nurse was, she worked just diligently with everything the entire time. I never saw her sit down until she left for lunch, and someone came in for that 30 minutes, and then she came right back. But I want to say that she came in maybe about 3 o'clock that afternoon, because my head said, I'm here now. I'm not leaving. I am not leaving this hospital. I'm going to stay right here by his side. And about 3 o'clock that afternoon, she came in and said, I hate this part. She said, this is horrible to me. She says, but the floor manager told me that I needed to let you know that if he doesn't pass away by the time my shift ends, that you're going to have to go home. And all I could think was, what? Are you kidding me? And I said, really? She said, yeah. She said, and he's doing so well. She said, it looks like he's not going to pass away right now. And I said, I know, because I'm here.
There, he could feel your presence.
He knows I'm here. And she said, I believe you. Let me go talk to the floor manager again and see if, we can do something else. And so she went back out. And she came back about a few minutes later, and she said, well, he said that you could stay till visiting hours, but you're going to have to go home then. And it wasn't, they weren't trying to be mean. She said that he explained that it was a safety precaution, not just for me, for him, but for me and anyone around. So I kind of gave into it. Yeah. And so I asked her what time her shift ended, and that was at 7 o'clock. And then I asked her what time visiting hours ended. And I think she said either 8 or 9. I can't remember the time, but I did. I got to stay there until visiting hours are over. The floor manager did come in and talk to me probably about 7:30, and said that I'm not gonna force you out of here, but I really, really want to ask you to please go home at that time. He says it's a tough situation, a tough time, and I understand. But he's got the best of care. So he took me through all the talk to help me feel, not better, but just to, comply with going home at that time. So
was this week 3 that he was? And you said he was in pain. What kind of pain was it?
From the virus, he couldn't breathe. His chest
so
hurt.
His chest was tightening up like they say an elephant is sitting on your chest and you can't breathe. Okay.
Yes.
Wow, that would be miserable.
I would think so.
Yeah, and breathing. And then, like I said, I've noticed that you have dealt with it so that you have. It's not easy when losing someone. Like you never completely get over it as you're not expected to. Right. But you just learn how to kind of deal with it a little bit better each day. Yes. And I know that you're getting better each day. Like you've had various things at your place, and we've come and I've seen you getting gradually better with and you have a very strong support system. Like I noticed your daughters and your grandchildren. Yes. And so that's amazing, a support system that you have.
Right.
So, and then you said that, like you felt like what was really touching to me was when you said that you felt like he didn't want to live any longer because he didn't want to be a burden on you. So.
Yeah, and I won't say it wasn't so much about not living, it was just, from what I've felt spiritually,
Yeah.
he could have remained here, but had he come through the virus and remained here, because of all that his body went through, there's a good possibility he would have had to be on oxygen the rest of his life, that he would possibly have had to have dialysis the rest of his life. So, among other things.
And that's not quality.
And knowing him like I knew him, he was an independent soul. He was a giver and a doer. And he believed that he was the one that should be taking care of people.
Exactly. A man's man.
Exactly. He had been in a motorcycle the year prior.
Yeah, because you guys rode motorcycles together quite a bit.
Right. It was a pretty serious accident where he should have died. And he could have, in surviving, he could have lost his leg or his foot.
Wow. I remember when he was in the hospital and his leg looked pretty bad.
Yes.
I felt the pain. It just looked very painful.
It was for him, but he never complained. Not one day did he ever complain. And during that time, because then he was in the hospital 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And when he came home, he was frustrated and bothered and worked hard and diligently with the occupational therapist, with the physical therapist, to get back on his feet and be able to do for himself.
Right.
It bothered him for me to have to bathe him. It bothered him for me to have to, fix his food and, bring it to him on a tray and set it on a tray in front of him. It bothered him for me to have to, address his wounds
'Cause he
3 or
felt
4
like
times a day. He just didn't want me. He came into my life with the feeling and the belief that he was here to serve me,
to take care,
and take care of me, and protect me, and provide for me.
And he felt like he was kind of letting you down by having you take care of him.
So my feeling spiritually is that he chose to be on his way, for lack of a better word, to keep me from having to be in the position of having to take care of him.
And when you said that was so deep to me, and it made so much sense. It made a lot of sense because, like, I know that when my father was sick and he was passing away, he had cancer. He knew that he was passing away. That he said that he couldn't protect his family, and it was his goal to be able to protect his family.
Right.
And when he couldn't, he was just like, it was frustrating to him. So I know what you're saying when you say that. And then I know that people relieve their tension in different ways, and your way of relieving your sadness or grief over losing such a precious soul to you was to start writing a book.
Right.
And so writing is
it's cathartic for me.
Yeah.
It was my way of dealing with the whole process, because I actually started writing it the day I took him to the hospital.
That's amazing. And then I listened to some of what you read, and it was amazing. I thought it was very, very well written. I was a journalism major in college, so I know different writing, and your style is amazing. I don't think I could have written anything as well as you have written it. It's really good.
Thank you.
And later on, I'm going to show a picture of you and Terri in the video, and so then I wanted you to read an excerpt of your book about Terri, and it's like 7 chapters. I don't think you've titled it yet, right?
No, it's titled. It's Fighting What You Can't See.
Okay, Fighting What You Can't See is a title.
Yes.
Okay, I like that title.
Yes.
I like that title.
So I'm not sure which part you want to hear, but I've only heard a couple parts. But I've got another part that I thought was pretty intriguing.
Okay.
Let's see. Give me a second. Let me see if I can find it. Where it starts.
Yeah, it's really good. It's like, it was impressive. It kept my attention the whole time. It was just very, it's deep, and it's her
And the idea of the book, the idea of it for me was to provide something that could possibly help other people.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask you
Yes.
later on
that are going through
Right.
something, and not just in the loss of life or the
Right.
loss of a loved one, but just life.
Yeah.
Things come at you so fast and so hard that
Yeah.
it'll overwhelm you. It'll knock you off your feet.
Yeah.
And if you don't have something that says, this is how you can do this,
Right.
this is how you can get through this, then you'll just fall
Yeah.
and struggle to get back up.
Yeah, especially the unexpected.
Right.
That's
Right. So here's a part that I wrote that I like. Well, I like the whole thing.
Yeah.
So.
It's pretty good. I like
This
it.
one, and it's just a segment out of there.
Okay.
It says, I watched a movie a few weeks ago entitled Roman J. Israel Esquire. It was an intriguing and compelling movie that shows a lot about how we think and function in our worlds. In this movie, Denzel Washington played the role of Roman, a savant civil rights attorney who prepared the briefs for the firm but had never tried a case in the 36 years he'd been practicing. He was so brilliant and had so much knowledge and information in his head. He could cite dates and places and events and people like we sing the ABCs. However, he was so out of touch with time and people that it was crippling. He knew it, but chose to be in that place mentally and physically until something pulled him out of that choice. We do that. We make that choice and remain there until we allow something to pull us from our choice. We make a choice and we choose to be where we are. Well, there are several times in my life I remember stating, I didn't ask to be here. Oh, but I beg to differ. We could not be without my consent. I could not be without my consent, without the desire, nor without my will. Now that I am here, I am called to make decisions. We actually have to make decisions. We make a conscious decision on how we are going to interact with the idea of ourselves and the idea of the world around us. We fight fights, battles, and wars in our head every waking moment, and for some of us, even in the sleeping ones. That's a lot of conflict. In this movie, Roman made a statement that really caught my attention. He said, quote, "The ability to have conflicting ideas in one's head takes effort," end quote. What I saw in that statement was distractions, and this caused me to look at how I think and what I think. As I did that, I realized how easily I get distracted. So I began to look more at distractions and their purpose. First, what is it and why are they so pervasive in my life? My understanding of a distraction is that it is something that can hinder or prevent you from keeping your complete focus on something that you should be attentive to. Vocabulary.com says, it is when you are dragged away from your task or from your worries. I like that latter part a lot. So because I like to paint a picture, here's a visual. Distractions come and go like cars passing you by as you ride down the highway. Some are slow-paced, irritating, and in the way. You eventually go around them. Some go so fast that they appear reckless and a danger to those in close proximity. You may slow up when they come along. Others can come up on you from behind and out of nowhere and actually frighten you. These make you think really hard about your surroundings, or those that ride along with you and move at your same speed for miles. You don't mind them at all, and sometimes use them to gauge your pace. Oh, and you can't help but see the ones going the opposite direction. There's always something happening the other way. Distractions can move slow and easy, be fast-paced, or can be abrupt and halting. Honestly, this thing called life is a distraction. Think about it. You were told you have a purpose and that you have purpose when you come into this world. So come into this life seeming to know and hit the ground running. Most of us begin our lives confused about what that purpose is. We kind of falter around looking and unsure. Then there are those who choose to believe they have no purpose. They tend to become plagued the most with distractions. Remember, this book is about fighting what you cannot see. Earlier I spoke of the whisper, but keep in mind there's more than one whisper in the atmosphere. Many people hear multiple voices and go mad or do insane things. Most of us have learned how to manage the voices in our head and shut them up or just ignore them. So those other whispers are another form of distraction, whose intent is to distract you from your purpose, to confuse you, and keep you from accomplishing that purpose. Their plan is strategic and personal. Knowing the source of that whisper is key to making the best choice and the right decision for you. Learning to discern the other whispers is vital to your journey here on this earth, and we'll touch on that a little further down. Just know all of these positions mentioned are about choices and or decisions. These positions, choices, decisions are all in our heads. They are often ideas we hold close to heart, and we fight for them and with them internally before they ever manifest externally. I have talked to a close friend, lifelong friend, pretty frequently since this whole discovery of how to fight what I can't see began. His name is Kevy, and while he lives in another state, he is regularly available when I need to talk. He is truly a unique individual with a clever way of thinking and living life. He continuously drops tangible nuggets of wisdom on me. Then he tests me on them, often without me realizing this until after I'm in the midst of the test. I've dealt with a lot since the start of the pandemic. Actually, I've dealt with a lot all of my life. So I've been prepared for what comes next. This pandemic is just the highlight right now. I've made choices and decisions based on the idea of me and my world. Then I have a fight with the conflicts in my head, all the inside distractions. I'm always thinking and often too much. I can talk myself out of things, into things, believing things I shouldn't, not believing things I should, questioning, and I do this all in the name of logic, rationale, and reasoning. I've gotten much, much better over the years, but have certainly thought too much to my own detriment on occasion. In talking with Kevy, our conversation tends to focus on getting out of my headspace and how it is so much more room outside with so much more freedom of thought. After a conversation with Kevy about another challenge I was facing, he sent me a letter, and in this letter he said, overthinking is parasitic. It's viral. It's deadly even. Letting yourself fall victim to overthinking doesn't just kill you, it destroys who you are, inside and out. The mind is a very complex thing, and the only person who can hurt you is yourself. He closed the letter by saying overthinking can become a bad habit that can cause you emotional suffering and steal your joy. You need to catch yourself in this habit and do the work to redirect your thoughts to something more positive. He blessed me tremendously, and I can see how God has used him to propel me forward and to get out of my head. The distractions are always going to be. They are a very strategic weapon. I can put a name to some of the avenues: our thoughts and beliefs, friends and family, work, money, pain and sickness, fame, drugs, alcohol, sex, even hate, even love can be a distraction. Anything that will redirect you from where your focus is supposed to be is a distraction. Understand that anything that hinders or deters you from being what you are created to be is not from the whisper, but it is from the other whisperers. They will tell you life is not worth living, you're not worthy, that you can't make it without someone, to do drugs, to take that last puff, and the list goes on and on. So how do we stop the distractions and regain our focus? In the movie that we started out talking about, Roman made another statement: every weapon is a tool if you hold it the right way. End quote.
I like that. So that's an excerpt from the book, and it's called
Fighting
What You Cannot See.
Yes.
And I like that. So it hopefully it will be like out in ebook and at what are the book, Barnes and Nobles and
Yes.
Amazon, all the big book sites
Right.
here shortly within the next few months or so.
Yes.
Fingers crossed, praying. And then
Yes.
in closing, I just want to know, what would you say to people or to anyone that has lost someone very dear and close to them? What would to cope with it from the beginning to the mid? What would you say? Just to
when I was going through this initially, and even up until after Terri transitioned on, people would call and say, "You are so strong. You are so strong. I couldn't handle it. I couldn't do it." First, you speak your own condition. So when you start saying you can and can't do something,
exactly,
you're right.
You speak your own faith. Yeah,
You're right. And it wasn't strength that got me through. It was my faith in God, my belief in Him, and my relationship with Him. It wasn't just being able to say, "Oh yeah, I believe in God. I talk to God. I know God." I have a relationship with Him, and it's built on getting to know Him like I got to know my husband.
yeah, right.
Talking to Him and looking to Him and believing Him. And no, I can't. People always want to see that one, that entity. I see Him every day, all day long. I see Him when I look out the picture window at the trees.
Right, exactly.
I got to see life go from that winter time, and everything was just covered in snow and quiet and dead,
Yeah.
technically,
Yeah.
and then see it all come back to life.
In
I
the
see
spring,
it
yeah.
in people when I talk to you.
Mhm.
I mean, I see God working
Yeah.
and flowing and moving through
Yeah.
people, so I see Him,
Right.
and I've had to hone my ability to see Him in everything: the good, the bad, the ugly, and the beautiful. And that's my words of
Yeah.
wisdom. Just build your relationship, and it's not. Church is an important place to be, but it's not about going to that physical place, that physical building.
Right.
That building is for the fellowship.
Exactly.
It's for the kinship, and it's for the connections. But that the church is you and I.
Yeah.
We are that.
And you're saying you have to have spirituality within
Yes.
yourself in order
Yes.
to be able to cope with
Yes.
different various things. I agree with that wholeheartedly. So I thank you very much for your time. And like I said, in the end, I'm going to add pictures of you and Terri.
Yes.
And like I said, you are an amazing couple. And like I've seen the way that you have grown from this experience, and that the strong support that you have.
Right.
And I think it's amazing.
To include my brother.
And yeah, and your brother too. Amazing.
Yes.
Yep, he was here right by your side from the
Yes.
from the onset. So thank you for being so strong for everybody and showing us how to deal with something in our life that is tragic,
Right.
and to be able to live day to day
Yeah.
going on with life after dealing with that and moving on and coping with it by writing or
Yes.
doing something very productive with it.
Right.
So thank you for your time, Terri.
You're very welcome.
And
Thank you.
Next, she is my, what did I say, the bad mama jamma for the week, and she's the Magic is Real. She's part of my Magic is Real series. Thank you, Terri. Talk to you next time.
All right.
Have a
Bye-bye.
great one. Bye-bye.
When the night has come and the land is dark and the moon is the only light we'll see. No, I won't be afraid. Oh, I won't be afraid. Just as long as you stand by me. So darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Stand by me. If the sky that we look upon should tumble and fall, or the mountain should crumble to the sea,